Hello everyone, and I hope that you're doing well. Today we're doing a health science paper 2 review, and this paper was from the year 2022. Before you start this examination, always remember to write your school number. You should also write a candidate number as well, your name, and also your initials, as well as your surname. As well, please remember to read through the instructions carefully, and if you have any questions or query, please clarify those with the examiner before the examination begins. Now let's go into question number 1. And question number 1 reads that the diagram shows the lower portion of the human skeletal system. And so let me provide the labelings here. So we have joint P, which is a ball and socket joint. We have Q, which is a femur. We have R, which is a tibia. And we have S, which is the phalanges. And so the first part of the question, part A, is to state 2 functions of the human skeletal system. And there are many functions of the human skeletal system, so I provide more than 2 for you. So we have protection of the internal organs. The skeletal system also produces blood cells. It gives the body shape. It stores minerals, particularly calcium, and it supports movement as well. And so for part B, so give the scientific names for the bones labeled Q, R, and S. And of course, you can just go back if you want and you see it on the diagram. And so we have Q, which is the femur, we have R, which is the tibia, and we have S, which is the phalanges. All right, so for part C, it's a name 2 minerals needed to form strong bones, or well, matter of fact, strong hard bones, and one is calcium, the other is phosphorus. And then now we go into part D, and part D1. And part D wants to state the name of the joint P on the diagram, and that is the name of that joint is the hip joint. And just a point to note, the type of joint, it's a ball and socket. So notice the difference. It's a name the joint is a hip joint, but the type of joint is ball and socket. So please be careful of the wording that they will use in the questions. Now for part 2, it's during a basketball game, Tim was sliding to third base and the bones at the joint P came apart. What is the name given to this type of skeletal injury? And this is a dislocation. For part E, is how many bones are there in an adult human skeleton? And so a human skeleton will have 206 bones. However, babies will have 306. So just to make a note right there, right? But answer here is 206 for the adult human skeleton. All right, for question number 2. So the diagram now shows the human urinary system. And so again, I provide some labels right here. We have a kidney, we have L, which is a ureter, M is a urinary bladder, and N is a urethra. All right, and so he asks us to name L, M, and N, ureter, to remind you, M, urinary bladder, and N, urethra. All right, and so for part B, so state 1 function of the kidneys. And so the kidneys serve 2 general purposes, and so I give you both of them, so you can state any one. So one function of the kidney is to filter the blood by removing waste, and that waste is urea, and this process is called excretion. So one function of it is to remove waste by excretion. The other function is to control the amount of water in the body, and that process is called osmoregulation. For part C1, it's to name 2 main substances found in urine, and the 2 main substances that will be in urine will be urea and water. But I also wanted to note that urine also contains salts. All right, but the 2 major one is urea and water. And as a matter of fact, water is the most of urine. All right, and so for part 2 of this of C, is to describe the color of urine when the body is hydrated and dehydrated. So if the body is hydrated, then it's going to be pale yellow, and if you are dehydrated, then it will be dark yellow. For part 3 is to name the muscle that prevents urine from leaving the bladder until you are ready to urinate, and that is the sphincter muscle. For part D is Sam's kidneys do not work properly. So his doctor puts him on a treatment where a machine does the work for the kidneys, and they said, what is the name of this treatment? And it is the dialysis. All right, so dialysis. So you're gonna do a dialysis, and so they call it a dialysis machine. All right, so the treatment is actually dialysis. All right, for part 3, well, question number 3, not part 3. Question number 3 It said that the question below is on the human blood. And so part A is that the human blood has several functions. One function of the blood is to keep the body at the right temperature. So the question now says state two other functions of blood, and blood has many functions. And so one is protection from infection or diseases, and the reason for that because you have white blood cells. The white blood cells will protect us from diseases and infection. The blood also transports gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide. The blood also transports nutrients, example glucose, amino acids. The blood also transports hormones and also transports waste. All right, so those are the basic functions of the blood. Number part B is that the diagram below shows two types of blood cells. We have cell A and we have cell B. If you study the diagram carefully, you're going to notice the difference. And I say write the name of cell A and cell B. And so cell A is a red blood cell and cell B is a phagocyte, all right, which is a type of white blood cell. All right, but the specific name is a phagocyte. So part two is a state one function of cell B. So one function of the phagocyte is to engulf and digest pathogens or bacteria, if you want to mention that. And an example of pathogen will be bacteria. So any pathogens at all, the white blood cell will attack them, engulf them, and digest. For part three is a state one structural differences. One structural difference, matter of fact, between cell A and cell B. So one structural difference, and I gave you actually two, because there are two major differences. And so for cell A, which is red blood cell, there is no nucleus, but for cell B, which is a phagocyte, it has a nucleus, even though the nucleus is irregularly shaped, but it still has a nucleus. The other function is that cell A is smaller and cell B is larger. And notice a structural difference. Now, for other differences in terms of also the shape, because the red blood cell is a biconcave shape, however, the phagocyte will be more round shape. All right, and again, you need to remember that the red blood cell will be more in number, all right, and you have white blood cells will be less in number. But the axis structural. Structural mean the physical makeup of the thing. All right. Now, part C is a blood transfusion is a transfer of blood or blood components from one person, which is a donor, to another person, which is a recipient. If Sally has type A blood, name one other blood type that can be safely given to her if she needs a blood transfusion. And so the blood that can be safely given to Sally, and it's another, this key right here, one other blood type, and the other blood type is type O. Type O can be given to anyone. Now, Sally can also receive from another A group, but you cannot put type A right here because they say one other blood type. And so the only answer you can put here is type O. All right? And just to make a note that she can receive from type A and type O, all right? But the answer there is O based on what they ask. Now for part D, is hospitals usually have donated blood or blood components stored in case of emergency. And it's a state the name of the place in the hospital where the donated blood is stored, and that section is called the blood bank. For part E, is the blood leaving the body cells contains less oxygen and more carbon dioxide. It said what term is used to describe this type of blood leaving the body cells, and it's called deoxygenated blood. For the next section here, it said John has 5 liters of blood. It said the blood is filtered by the kidneys, which is 250 times a day. How many liters of blood are filtered each day? And so if John has 5 liters and it filtered 250 times, then going to be 5 times 250, which gives us 1,250 liters. All right, let's go to our next question, which is question number 4. It's a diagram shows a section of the human skin. It's a use the diagram to help you answer the questions. And so again, I provide some labels here. So again, you can pause and go through it. Let me just say A is epidermis, B is dermis, and C is what they call a subcutaneous layer, or otherwise called the adipose or the fat layer. And now we have here, which is a sweat gland, and we have Z here, which is the erector muscle. Yeah. So the erector muscle is the access to label it. So I will go to the question. You will see it, a matter of fact. So let's jump into part A first. And so you said the skin consists of three main layers, and it's a complete table below by filling in the empty boxes with the name of the layers and their functions. And so let's go through this one really, really quickly. And so the epidermis, the function of the epidermis is really to protect the body from infections. It also protects us from UV radiation. It protects us from injuries as well, and it keeps the skin hydrated. So those are the function of the epidermis, the outermost layer. The dermis now, which is the middle piece right here, so it's thick, soft inner layer that gives the skin its flexibility and strength, and so that is the dermis. And now the subcutaneous or the fat layer, the purpose for that layer is to insulate the body, which keeps the body warm, so it helps to maintain temperature. And so that you can put that as one, help to maintain temperature. And it also stores energy because fat molecules stores energy. All right, so for part B, it's a human skin has several functions. One function is excretion. It's a structure 1 on the diagram allows the skin to perform its excretory function. What is the name of structure 1? And let's go back to it. I will show you. It's actually sweat gland, but I want to show you in the diagram. So structure 1 right here, it is the sweat gland. And notice this line going up will be the sweat duct, and at the top of it, we get the sweat pore. All right, so you need to know to label the entire skin. All right, and so it's a named excretory product produced by structure 1, and that will be sweat. And sweat contains water, urea, and salts. All right, and so the answer is only sweat. All right, but of course, I like to give you some extra information to remind you of certain basic stuff. Now, for part 3, it's what happens to the excretory product produced by structure 1 when it gets to the surface of the skin. And once sweat is on the surface of the skin, sweat will tend to evaporate. All right, so evaporation will take place there. All right, so for part C, is on the diagram, draw a line to the erector muscle and label it Z, which I did before. I actually show you that. So I'll just go back up quickly. So this is the erector muscle connected to the hair. All right, and the function will, well, that will be the next question. So let's go down to the question itself. So right here, right. So for part 2 of C, is a state what happens to hair when the erector muscle contracts. And so if it contracts, it's going to pull the hair up, so the hair will stand up straight and goosebumps are seen. So the simple answer though is really to stand up straight. The hair will stand up straight. And of course, the extra information is the goosebumps will be seen. All right. For part D, it said the picture shows a lady face with a skin disorder. This disorder is characterized by pimples and is very common among young people during puberty. And so what you see in here is pimples. And so it's a name, the skin disorder shown in the picture, and that is acne. And for part 2 of this question, it said the overproduction of skin oil or sebum can contribute to this disorder. It's a name, the structure in the diagram which produces sebum. And sebum is produced by the oil gland, otherwise called a sebaceous gland. All right, so that's end of that question. We go into question number 5, and we almost to the end. Now, this one's in the diagrams now show the 2 types of sex cells found in humans. It's a use the diagrams to help you answer the question which follow. And so cell 1 is a sperm cell, and cell 2 is an egg cell, otherwise called ovum. And so for part A, is what is the scientific name of for sex cells? So this is the general name for sex cells, and so sex cells are called gametes. All right, so sperms and eggs, they are gametes. Now for part 2, it's a complete table below by stating the name of each sex cell and the gender. And so one sperm cell is for male, and egg cells will be for female. Again, you can use the word ovum as well. For part B, so the number of chromosomes in a sex cell is different from the number in regular body cells. How many chromosomes are found in a sex cell? And that will be half the number, which is 23. Now for part C1, it's a during reproduction, sex cells fuse. It's what term is used to describe this process, and this process is called fertilization. For C2, it said where in the female reproductive system does the process named in C1 take place, and that is the fallopian tube. Fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. Now for C3, it said when sex cells fuse, a new structure is formed. What is the name given to the new structure formed? And that is called the zygote. All right, so zygote is formed. All right, so next part here, D, is that chromosomes are thread-like structures found in a cell. In which part of a cell are chromosomes found? And chromosomes are found in the nucleus of a cell. Also, you can make a note that DNA is also can be found in the nucleus as well. All right, so chromosomes and DNA are found in the nucleus of cells. All right, and we also call chromosomes and DNA genetic materials. So if you see genetic materials, they mean the same thing. Now, question number 6, which is our last question. And so the question below is on the nervous system. And so the nervous system is one of the main systems of the human body. State the function of the nervous system. All right, and so the function of the nervous system is to send impulse, which are electrical messages, from one part of the body to another. And a point to note, it also helps the body to respond to changes in the environment, and those changes, they are called stimuli. All right, so it helps us to really respond to our environment or changes in environment. So the diagram below represent two types of neurons, and so I can name them for you. The first one here is the motor neuron. This one here is a sensory neuron, and P here is a cell body. All right, I notice you have dendrites up here. All right, and of course you need to learn to label the different neurons and also identify them. Now for part B1 is to state the names of the neuron labeled R and S, and so R again is a motor neuron, S is a sensory neuron. And how we know it's a sensory neuron, just to go back up on the diagram, the cell body is always to the side. So sensory, cell body, side. So sensory, side. That's how we know that S is a sensory neuron, and we know that this is a motor neuron because the cell body is at one of the end. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next part of the question. And here now we are at the part 2 of this. It said, what is the function of the neuron in R? And that's a motor neuron. And so motor neuron receives impulses from the relay neuron, and the relay neuron will be in the spinal cord, and then it will send the impulse to the effector cells within the muscle to carry out action. So pretty much the motor neuron connects the spinal cord to the muscles that will carry out actions. All right. All right. So for part 3 is a name the structure labeled P on diagram S. And so the structure P, it is the cell body. All right. And so let's go to the next part of the question here now. Part D. It says a diagram represents a reflex arc. It says using words from the list below, write the names of the parts which show the correct direction in which an electrical impulse will travel to bring about a reflex action. All right, and so let's go into the diagram and notice the diagram here. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and so again, notice that this is the spinal cord. This dark area here is the gray matter. All right, and remember the order of travel of impulse. We start from the receptor cells and sensory, and then motor, then effector. So pretty much in the same order. So receptor will be first, then the sensory neuron, then motor neuron, then effector. All right, and you can look at the diagram. Let's go back a little bit up. You can see. So one is receptor, and receptor cells, they are found within sense organs, connect to the sensory neuron. So number 2 is sensory neuron. I want to point out something right here. Notice this point I'm highlighting. That's the cell body at the side of the neuron. So we know it's a sensory neuron. Then here we have the relay neuron here, and then coming out of the spinal cord into the muscle that I'm highlighting, that will be our motor neuron, which is 3. And then in the muscles, we have our effector. All right. And so we are at the end of this review, and I thank you for watching. And please remember to subscribe and share it to friends as well. All right. So I want to wish you luck on the exams, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.